Hello, everyone. My name is Daraja Hill, and it is pronounced Daraja. I know that's maybe sometimes a question. But yes, Daraja Hill. Only for a couple more weeks, and then I will be Daraja Whitemoyer because I am getting married in a couple of weeks here. I'm 20. Oh my gosh, how old am I? 26, 27 years old. Jeez. Um, Born in July. I'm a summer baby. Um, and I have my bachelor's degree in athletic training. I have a younger brother. Yeah, I just really like to spend most of my time with my dogs and my fiance if I'm not in the gym or grocery shopping or meal prepping. And then I do tend to enjoy spending time just with my people, the people that get you, that understand you. So yeah.
Well, congratulations on getting married.
Thank
Um,
you.
I'm kind of, I feel like I have a very kind of similar situation to you. I'm actually gonna be 27 here at the end of the month, and
Oh,
it doesn't seem like, for me, it always seemed like, okay, I'm like 18, 19, 20. I guess it's that way for everybody. Like you hit 21 and then you just like stop thinking about like your age because, there's
yeah.
no, like real benchmarks. But um,
Yep.
and actually how I started to get my degree in athletic training, and I was
Oh, no
like,
way.
yeah, and I was like, I don't know if I want to work with like this population. I think it's not necessarily actually wanted what I really wanted to do is do nutrition, but the school
Hmm.
that I chose didn't have anything specific for that. So I started looking
Okay.
kind of around and I was like, well, athletic training. And then I went with that for like, I don't know, maybe a month or something. And we have, this major fair. So I
Mm.
went to it and I was like, oh, what's this thing called exercise science? And so I looked into it and I was like,
Oh, yep.
that seems like maybe I don't necessarily want to work with like the injured population or, that side of it more. I want to work with,
Clinical side.
yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of changed up my thing for the remainder. And it was very interesting how much, you know, medical stuff I still learned and I still had to go through even with exercise science and most
Yep.
people probably don't even realize that when they get into it. It's a
Yeah.
very actual like medical heavy degree. A lot of people who do it go on and work with like cardiac patients or pulmonary patients for rehab.
Yep. A
So
lot of, yeah, rehab clinics, for sure. I know me specifically, I did do some clinicals at some physical rehab centers, not necessarily specific to cardiac, but more like outpatient stuff, which I was not loving that environment. It got kind of old like very quickly. And it just wasn't like the fulfilling life that I wanted. I did enjoy working with sports, like primarily because I had grown up playing sports. So, getting paid to kind of like sit and watch sports, make sure no one gets hurt. That was the more fun part of it. But I honestly don't think athletic trainers get paid enough to do what they do.
yeah, very
So,
important, obviously, especially when it comes to once somebody does get injured, keeping them from getting injured is one thing, but when they do get injured,
yeah,
it
that's the
really,
side of it. That's
yeah.
like, yeah, I remember I had one girl that scared the crap out of me because I thought she was actually gonna like not quite recover. She ended up having really bad heat exhaustion and dehydration, and she passed out on me, and like we could not get her to come to. Yeah, that was terrifying. Couple broken bones, relocated a shoulder. I was like, cool, I've done this. I'm out of here.
Yeah. And especially, you look around like what's going on with the NFL right now with
Oh man.
Tua and just,
I was yeah, that I was outraged when I because my obviously my fiance keeps up with that more than I do. And when he told me that he actually had a similar issue on the field, literally days, not even a week prior, I was like, then why the hell is he out there? But I won't even get into that. But I was not happy. I was like, no freaking way they let him play.
yeah, yeah, there's I think there's a lot of a lot of money wrapped up in it, obviously politics and things. So
Yeah,
just it has to come down, I think, though, to keeping people safe. And no matter what we do, and we could talk about that in bodybuilding, we could talk about that in any sport.
absolutely.
Whenever there's a performance, whenever there's a competition on the line, people, whether they're putting themselves in that situation or, coaches and management are putting them in that situation, it's just we have to really have like a lot of times a third party, whether that be, for a bodybuilder, a coach, or, federation or whatever it is to just make
Mm-hmm.
sure people are doing it and not putting their life on the line. And something that I talked about recently on the podcast was, don't live your dreams at the expense of your life, so
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to like playing it
It's a
smart.
hard line to draw, I think, for yourself, because especially when you have ambitious goals and like you just have this desire to perform, I feel like you try to just brush things off until you realize you've hit some sort of breaking point or you've hit a low and you're like, dang, I need to reevaluate, you
Mm,
know?
yeah. It's definitely it's a tough line, for anybody to try to walk and stay on the right side
Hmm.
of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you actually get into fitness and then get into bodybuilding?
So I grew up playing sports. Tennis was my primary sport. I was always just very into being active, like at a very young age. I tried a lot of things. I tried soccer, I tried track, which I loved. I was pretty decent at that. Snowboarding, pretty much I tried a lot of things. I did not try lacrosse. That was never something I was super interested in. But yeah, so I played in the USTA, which is the United States Tennis Association, for those who don't know. It's a competitive tennis. You travel to your region or different regions, and obviously there's different levels and things like that. Maybe at one point, my dad and I were maybe thinking of training to try our luck at the pro circuit one day, but as I kept playing through high school, I did end up with some overuse injuries, some tendonitis in my shoulder. And I kind of saw that as an out because I eventually realized one, I was getting burnt out of tennis. I was training a lot and my primary focus was school and tennis and then like maybe some sort of social life, but like really not so much. So when I got to college, I experienced this freedom that I didn't really have before as far as like my schedule was concerned. And not being active was not part of the equation at all. That was even a question. I knew I wanted to do something. I ended up playing club tennis, but then started getting into working out in the gym. This was like right as Instagram fitness models were like making their appearance and becoming very popular. And we can like definitely kind of discuss it more in detail later, but I started like really comparing myself to them as like my what I thought was motivation. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna crush myself on the stairs, train legs all the time because I was never very curvy. I always wanted to be more curvy. I was always very athletic built. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just build some curves. Little did I know it doesn't really quite work like that. You can't just change your bone structure with like through training. So it took me a little while to understand that. So obviously having those extrinsic sources of motivation, I was just running into this wall of like kind of disappointment, lack of fulfillment. I just feel like I wasn't succeeding. And then also just battling my own kind of struggle with confidence and self-esteem at the time. Um and but I still enjoyed the gym. I still enjoyed working out. And then my fiance kind of noticed I was like, after a little bit, taking this kind of turn into just these self-destructive habits of like constantly scrolling and looking at these girls and just obviously being disappointed that I didn't look like them. And he was like, I really think that you should like stop doing that and do something a bit more productive with your time. Obviously, you enjoy fitness and obviously you want to have a positive influence. Maybe try something more competitive like powerlifting or bodybuilding. And at the time, I hadn't really been familiar with either of those. Um, so my original start to fitness wasn't really to aspire to be anything more than just going to the gym, working out. I ate whatever whenever I wanted because I grew up. Had always had a pretty good metabolism. People would probably be shocked at the things that I used to eat on a regular basis. Lots of Chick-fil-A, lots of Panda Express, burgers and fries whenever. And so the diet aspect was never really a huge interest to me until I started competing.
Gotcha. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here just for a second. Let me tell you about Smoking Gun Coffee. They're a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to produce a quality coffee at an affordable price. They only buy coffee from small coffee farmers around the world with a cup score of at least 85. Each batch is roasted to order for maximum freshness.
They also donate a large portion of their proceeds to organizations that help local communities, veterans, first responders, or you can donate to the foundation of your choice at the checkout by going to www.smokingguncoffee.com. That's SMOKIN Gun Coffee. When it comes to science-backed supplements that taste great, 2NS is your one-stop shop. They truly maximize quality by making their own supplements in-house. With over a combined 90 years of experience, 2NS's team of industry experts has a commitment to research, quality, development, and innovation. The body is sacred, so give it the best. Check out all 2NS has to offer at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com.
It's funny you mentioned that, being kind of an ex-athlete, I got to work with athletes for about a year in multiple sports, basketball, football, tennis, bowling, volleyball, baseball. So, at a high school level, and it's the same thing you kind of hear over and
They
over
just
and
eat
over.
whatever.
Yeah, because they're at the end of the day, they're just, they're just kids, they're just like
Hmm.
doing what their friends are doing. They're stopping off after school if they're hungry, or, after
Right.
practice, they're grabbing something because they got to get home and do their homework, or,
Hmm.
it really is kind of, it's very interesting, and kind of some of the nutritional information we try to pass along to them, just the basics, okay, if it's in a wrapper, maybe after a hard workout, avoid things that are in wrappers, avoid something that you have to cook in the microwave,
Hmm.
the basics, stay hot, drink plenty of water, and
Yeah.
even after you're done training, like all these things, and they're just small, they're just like basic things that you can do and that you can tell people. And I think even if they don't necessarily follow a structured diet like a bodybuilder, you wouldn't expect them to do that, but it's just
Right.
things that you can tell somebody, that you can get in their head at an early age. And I think that's where kind of the power to influence people comes from, is just
Hmm.
making that small recommendation, that small suggestion. But it is funny, I thought, when you said that, just how many people I heard say the same thing. How many kids I heard, like, and some people
I
who
used
didn't
to
even
I
eat.
used to dip my pizza in nacho cheese actually when I was younger in high school because I remember there was one day I really wanted nachos, but I really wanted pizza, but I only had enough to choose one. And so I was like, let's just combine them. And then yeah, I used to dip it in ranch too. That was fun. Now I'm more towards blue cheese, but I digress.
I haven't tried the blue cheese, but
Oh,
that
delicious.
does kind of sound good with maybe like a little pepperoni or sausage pizza or something.
Or a buffalo pizza, white
Yeah,
pizza.
yeah,
Mm.
that does sound good. Might have to try that one of these days.
Oh yeah.
So, I think a lot of people get stuck in that trap of like comparisons on social media, using other people to, like you said, kind of motivate them, but not necessarily for the right reasons. Like I always say, motivation these days kind of gets crapped on a little bit for some good reasons, but I do think finding like your true motivation, or your true, why, and letting that why motivate you is actually very important, because you can't really have
Mhm.
discipline if you don't start from a base of being, motivated for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
So where did you actually end up finding that motivation?
I think it was just initially the fact that I had that next goal to work toward. I had come to realize and learn like in learning about myself that I need a goal. Like I need just something to kind of keep that carrot dangling in front of my face, like keep going kind of thing. And just kind of always looking to achieve that next level, to unlock that next level of yourself. And so initially the motivation was to kind of just have a goal that was really just centered around me focusing on being a better version of me. And I think that helped kind of drive me into like really just focusing on myself, which I never had been that good at doing. Um, so yeah.
And I think the or the fitness sports in particular are very really cool, because at any age you can, whether it be right after college, if you're like an athlete, you stop playing sports, or right after high school, whichever one, you just start going into the gym, and all of a sudden, you might still have this competitive drive. You might need something, like you
Definitely.
said, to like kind of motivate in a competitive way, in whether it be bodybuilding or powerlifting or CrossFit or whatever it is, strongman. There's so many different things that we can do in regards to
Mm-hmm.
fitness, even, in the other side of the spectrum, running and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
that they offer just like a really cool, I think, outlet for that competitive spirit.
Definitely. And I think it's very cool to understand that, like, obviously for me, it's bodybuilding that has like pushed me into being more ambitious and wanting more for myself. So for some people, that's painting. For some people, that's singing. For some people, that's, I don't know, like finances. But I think it's important to find that aspect or something in life that brings that out of you, and like you find some time to do that, to indulge in that, to in something that really just kind of, I mean, when I'm in the gym, it's like that, you just lose sense of time almost. You're just like, for that time that I'm in the gym, that hour and 30 minutes that I'm training, I do my cardio, I do my stretching, nothing else matters. Time stops. I'm just focused on me for that time. And then when I leave, now I can address other things. But yeah, it's a cool feeling to experience.
Yeah, I think it's really good for, obviously mental health as well. It's like
Hmm.
a moving meditation, finding,
Yes,
finding a passion. And like you said, it doesn't have to be exercise. I think it's important for many people and most people to exercise in some way regardless. But like,
absolutely.
finding your passion, whether it be singing or playing an instrument or whatever it is, it's something that a lot of people don't do, it feels like, anymore, is having some type of like side skill. I don't know if it's
Hmm.
because of like social media, or Netflixes and things that are taking people's attention and just kind of, just pushing them into a screen or what, but it just feels like people, they it's like entertainment is a new passion, I guess.
It's it's funny you say that because I'm definitely, I'm on my own kind of like, not just mental health journey, but just like I said, always aspiring to like kind of be the best version of myself. And I find that when I can identify things that I think are holding me back from that, I try to at least, if not cut cut it off, but like at least limit my exposure to those things. So I think part of that also just comes with practicing that self-awareness, which isn't easy to do because it forces you to kind of assess your life and go, okay, where am I falling short? Obviously, it forces you to take responsibility for the fact that there are things in that you could be doing that you're not doing, because no one wants to hear that they're not doing enough, right? But I think when you can learn how to like just understand that you don't have to live for the gram, you don't have to do everything for content, if that's not what makes you happy. For some people, providing content, making content is exciting for them, it makes them happy, it's what motivates them to get up in the morning and start their day. For me, that's not me, and I think I would be doing myself a disservice if I was just constantly like, oh, what am I going to post today, how am I going to get this, like a workout recorded. I've even started taking breaks from recording my workouts because like lately I've just wanted to get in there and work. And lately it's just been feeling like a distraction. So obviously my followers do enjoy when I post workouts, but I think also just knowing that it's okay to have boundaries and to, if you need to, just take a step back for a little bit.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's hard, somebody who definitely is in the world of content creation.
Mm,
It's very challenging to separate that from just like life in general. It's very hard to
definitely.
be like, oh, I'm going to go work out. And, you have 4 sets of this, 4 sets of that, 3 sets of this. And you're like, I have to film this or I have to like take a picture, I have to,
Right.
figure out when I can do this workout with this person so they can record my content. And
Yeah, get the right angles.
yeah,
Maybe either you get a shot back, you don't like it. You're like, oh no, I don't know. So yeah.
yeah, it adds a whole new dimension into like what something would be without that. It's just,
Hmm.
as much as like you can create content that is authentic, it's almost impossible to truly create 100% authentic content because it's, unless you just simply don't know something is like, you're being recorded, but otherwise
Right.
it's just really hard, I feel like, to stay authentic in the world
Mm-hmm.
where you're being, you know, if you're choosing to, you're choosing to, but you're putting yourself out there and you're
Mm-hmm.
being, watched and assessed, and it's just, you
It can be overwhelming.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think it's something that, and especially, like, I feel like bodybuilding these days is merging with that influencer world in so many ways. So it just adds another layer of like what already is a stressful and in like a packed life, and it just adds
Yeah.
something else to it.
Yeah. Oh man. I'll be honest, I've been trying to like kickstart my YouTube, like I don't know how many times. And every time I sit down to do it, I definitely am working on this for myself, but I'm such an overthinker. And I definitely am like always trying to be conscious of how I'm being perceived because I always like to be a positive influence. And I also am sometimes guilty of oversharing. So I never know how much to show, what I'm supposed to be posting. And I think in that sense, I end up just getting so overwhelmed, I just freeze, which I've actually read about, but and I'm working on that. But um because I keep hitting these walls of like I can't get this done and then all of a sudden my computer runs out of memory and I'm not very tech savvy. So then I'm like, oh, well, I can't upload this until I delete this last one, but I need that clip. And I was just like, okay, forget it. Like I'm just not gonna do it anymore.
Yeah, it's a lot, especially, doing it by yourself for the most part. It's a lot to handle, a lot to think about, along, like I said, with, handling all the other stuff that you have to do, getting all the bodybuilding stuff done, plus all the other life stuff done and as well. It's just
Yeah,
a lot.
life stuff. Yeah, man. And I work as a coach for Team Pro Physique, which is my coach Paul, that's his company. We have a team of coaches and I am one of those coaches on the team. And then I also have my posing coaching. So I still have not a 9 to 5, but it's still a lot of like working for yourself and working from home, as you probably know, you never really get to clock out almost. Um, Especially because you are constantly still having to sometimes like set aside time to think about how you're gonna, okay, how am I gonna elevate this? How am I gonna make this better? How am I gonna sit down and maybe create some templates for my clients to use that, maybe cuts back on my time as, back and forth emails, or how am I gonna update my website so that it's a little bit more user friendly? All those things, it's different. I don't miss my 9 to 5. So every time I think about complaining about it, I'm like, Daraja, don't do it because this is a luxury. But sometimes I'm like, damn, like it'd be nice to just clock out and just come home and like not have anything to think about until I clock in and work the next day.
Yeah. It's easy to think that way, for sure. Like, it, as much as you enjoy doing what you do, I mean, it's just as simple as there's pros and cons to everything, and it's
Hmm.
interesting to think like what the world will be like in 10 years and then in 20 years, because it feels like more people are trying to work for themselves. They're trying to, you know, have a small business and create something. And it's just going to be interesting to see like what that does to just people in general, like mental health wise. Cause,
Mm.
I think not to say that everybody can't do their own thing, but I just feel like some people aren't that kind of person, and that's okay. It's okay to not be a business owner, not to be like a creator. It's okay to just be somebody who does stuff like but it just is interesting to see how more and more people are going the way of working, trying to work for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when I started posing coaching, I didn't really have the intention of like creating a business so that I could work for myself. It really was, I think, in part because I just love coaching posing and it was something that was, I looked forward to that. And I think that was what forced the shift into me quitting my day job. Because I just kept finding like, okay, well, I'm sitting here watching this basketball game, these like teenagers are playing, but I'm thinking of ways to like update my scheduling, link, or how to, customize certain things, or whatever, just thinking about ways to make my business better. And then I just realized I just wanted more time to spend doing that. And then, realizing, okay, I'm actually pretty good at bodybuilding. I'm placing well, I'm getting first place, winning overalls, getting my pro card. And then, I realized, okay, this is my passion. I can be really good at this. And I just felt like when I had to go to work, it was pulling me away from focusing on that. So I took the leap and quit my job actually right as the pandemic hit, literally like a month before the whole country shut down.
Wow.
And I wouldn't have been getting any hours with my job because there was no school. But there were still girls that wanted to pose because, once the country did open back up, we would go back to competing. And so it ended up working out for me, of which I'm very grateful for, because I know it did not work out in a positive way for everybody. But yeah, I kind of just followed that energy. And luckily I have a very supportive partner and I asked him, I made sure, I was like, listen, are you cool with me like quitting AT to do posing coaching full time? Because it allowed me to make my own schedule so that I could compete and not worry about, hey, can I have time off for X, Y, and Z show? And he was like, yeah, I mean, if as long as we have a sustainable income, go for it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's really cool that you got to do that for sure. And then, had the ability to, build something up that is supportive. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Whenever you got initially, kind of going back in time a little bit, whenever you initially decided to get into bodybuilding though, what kind of around you, what kind of from your fiance or from family or from friends, like what kind of reaction did that kind of initially get?
It was from my fiance Keith. It was, well, support from day one because he was the one that encouraged me to do it in the first place. I don't think he knew what he was starting when he introduced it to me. But he was always super supportive. And then my family had always been pretty supportive. Obviously, um, not everybody has that. So I was very grateful that no one was like, why aren't you eating? Why you're looking too skinny. You need to eat this. And also just luckily, like through holidays and things like that, like it was never, also just in thanks to Paul and like just our approach with flexible dieting, I was able to make social situations work without going, no, I can't eat that. I have to eat out of my Tupperware, or no, I can't do the X, Y, and Z, or I don't want to go because I'm too tired and I'm eating no carbs, things like that. So I think because it was a healthier approach, obviously bodybuilding at that extreme level is not necessarily healthy, but because the approach we took wasn't so like just here's a list of things you can't do. Um, here's a list of ways to make things work. It was an easier buy-in for my friends and family. I never really had any kind of like, ew, I hate that you do this, oh my gosh, you're getting on stage in a bikini, like that's really weird. So yeah.
And for you personally, like even with a more, I guess, what it sounds like as a more open kind of nutrition basis, like what for you, how did you struggle at all with just the fact that you had to have some sort of like, hey, I have to do this, or anything like that, to where there was any, even just like like having more of a strict routine, like did that at all kind of, especially at the beginning, kind of wear on you and maybe make you think like, is this the route I want to go down, or is it maybe something else?
Honestly, not really, because in my mind I was like, if this is what I need to do to like succeed in my goal, then okay, like I'm just gonna suck it up and do it. Um, I think I initially had started off with working with someone that had put me on a meal plan, and it was very obvious that it was like a kind of just like a copy and paste from their notes kind of thing, without really evaluating like where we're at, what needs to be done, and things like that. It wasn't very specific to me, and I just remember like having this moment where I was like, I remember I posted on my story on Instagram that I had put honey on my rice cake. And he was like, don't do that. And I was like, what? And he was like, stick to what I put on your plan. And I was like, okay, but it's just a drizzle of honey. This is very strange to me that I can't have this. And I think because of my background in athletic training, I was aware enough and I understood enough to know like it doesn't have to be, you have to eat these certain foods only, no matter what. You can have some wiggle room, obviously responsibly. Don't just like sub out an entire meal for a donut and a protein shake because it fits, kind of thing. And it just ended up teaching me a lot about the food that I'm putting in my body, and listening to the biofeedback and things like that. So I really just saw it more as an experiment. I'm very curious and I like to understand things. And I think part of what led me into just pursuing a medical professional degree was because I'm very curious about the human body and how it functions, what makes it function better. And so I kind of just took that and ran with it.
And from the beginning, did you feel like bodybuilding was something that you had these very competitive and wanting to succeed at the highest level outcome goals, or was it more for you for like, let's just see where it takes me?
For that, yeah, that. let's just see what happens. I remember like getting on stage for my first show. I literally had like no pressure whatsoever. I definitely was not in contest shape. And I still ended up doing relatively well. I had won my true novice class, and then I got second in my open class. It was a smaller show, and I just remember having so much fun. Like I was just up there. I was not the best poser at the time either. Lots of windmill arms and elbows flying in the air. Um, and poses that you just don't really see anymore in bikini. And from there I was like, oh, this is fun. Like I want to do this again. So then I signed up for another show that was because it was close to me. And then I ended up winning my first overall. So that was my second show. And that was when right after I had signed up to work with Paul. And yeah, I was like, this is fun. And then we ended up figuring, people kept saying, oh, like you're nationally qualified now, like you can do nationals. And I was like, what's that? And so I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's go to nationals, because it was in Miami. And so we had a decent amount of time in between that show because it was in July and nationals wasn't until like November, December. So I started getting ready for a national show, and it was really big. And then I got fourth in my class. And then I remember just not even really being disappointed. I was like, I just want to see what happens, like see how it goes. And I just remember like, okay, getting off stage going, okay, well, how do I do better than that? And then that from there, it was kind of just like that spark that it just flew, man.
And do you feel like the fun, you kind of mentioned like, oh, this is fun, I want to kind of keep doing this. Do you feel like that fun comes from a majority of like the stage and the competition day, or do you feel like there's a fair amount as well of the fun and the enjoyment of the process of getting to the stage as well?
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com. Ready to take your supplements to the next level? 2NS is here to help. 2NS strives to help you attain the highest degree of health and performance. Combining cutting-edge science and the best from nature, 2NS gives fitness enthusiasts and athletes the fuel they need. Check them out at secondnaturesupplements.com. That's 2ndnaturesupplements.com. This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
Definitely a combination of both, but I won't lie, I love show day. I think it's so fun. It is tiring, like it's freaking exhausting. But like I know some people, like you'll ask some people and they're like, I freaking hate show day. I hate getting my makeup done. I hate wearing the tan. I hate getting, on stage and doing like whatever. I love to like from the moment I wake up in the morning to the moment I go to bed, one, try to be as present as possible because it goes by like this. If you've ever competed before, you know that. But it's like I just love the glam. Like you just get to put on this almost like you get to like pull out this other character and like just be that and kind of like just get up there and like do your thing. I just love it. I love it.
And do you feel like you have like more of an ability now to like slow things down in your head and just kind of just in general slow things down, slow the experience down, just for obviously good for performance, but also just good for remembering kind of what's going on and remember the day?
Yes, definitely. I remember when I was backstage at North Americans in 2019, where I had gotten my pro card, I was like backstage and I had written down this mantra and I was getting ready to line up to go on and I was like just repeating my mantra to myself. My eyes were closed. I was like I was like, Daraja, focus, like you have to perform. And then I was like, dude, chill out, man. Like you still have to go up there and have fun because then like why am I doing this? That was one of the things I remember about playing tennis was I ended up just remembering like after a while like it wasn't fun for me anymore because I had so much pressure on myself to perform to perfection. So I wanted to make sure that I kept that in mind. Even now when I'm competing, I still try to remember to just take it all in and be present.
Yeah. And I think, having higher stakes, it makes it so much harder to have that sense of like having fun and oh, this is something that I get to do and taking that
Yes.
into everything that you do, not just the stage, but taking that into like the workout. Okay, I get to get better today. I get to work out, like
Gratitude.
appreciation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And getting to the like more advanced levels, going pro and then, winning shows and then the Olympia stage, like for you, what is kind of the biggest differences between, each jump that you take?
I think the biggest difference is that's a good question. I think you do have to, it gets harder, I think, to tap into that kind of like blissful ignorance or unawareness of like what's at stake. I think obviously now I'm no longer just getting on, that's it. So I'm no longer just getting on stage to see how it goes. I think I'm at that level where I'm on stage to execute something. I'm there to take home a win or a qualification so I can make it back to Olympia and work towards that title. Um, which I think me like a year, 2 years ago would have been afraid to say that that's what I'm working for now, but it is the goal. Um, so I think there's a difference in you have to I just try to find different ways to tap into that again. And sometimes that means that I have to kind of isolate myself or mute people on Instagram because it keeps me from remembering how much I enjoy it and why I enjoy competing. Because obviously, sometimes you'll also see people like they'll complain a lot. They speak about it very negatively or they had a bad experience, which is okay. They're entitled to that. Or I start to compare myself to other competitors because obviously at that level, that's what you think about. It's like, how am I going to compare to her? How am I going to stack up to her? How are my glutes going to look side by side with this girl? How's my waist going to look next to this girl? And I think a really good analogy is like if you're just running this race, if you look straight, it's a lot easier to maintain momentum. If you keep checking your lanes to see who's next to you, who's in front of you, it's easier to trip, it's easier to fall, it's easier to slow down. So I think that's kind of my way of protecting the blinders on.
Yeah. And how much do you think social media like affects people as far as like just going into a show, especially at a higher level, and just being kind of even deflated before they compete?
Oh my gosh, it's so much harder because at least as an amateur, there's no competitor list that's coming out that's showing you who's on stage. So sometimes like I won't even look at the competitor list because at the end of the day it doesn't matter. But you're now just looking at, okay, well, this name is on here, this name is on here. This girl just won a show last week. I don't know how I'm gonna beat her. Um, you click on the name, you search the name, you start looking at these girls, seeing, okay, how far out are they, or are they in shape yet, you know? And social media, people are really good at angles and lighting and taking pictures on a really good day. They're not taking pictures when they're PMSing and bloated and posting them on Instagram, feeling really good about themselves. They're posting the days when, things are looking tight. Maybe they had a few days of lower carbs and more cardio. They're looking really tight, or they had a refeed and they look really filled out and not flat like they were 2 days prior. So it's important to just be aware if that's something that triggers some insecurity in you, or it makes you second guess yourself. Take it out. Just don't even look at it. Don't search them. Which reminds me of the whole food porn thing, because that's distracting too. I mute all of my favorite cookie, because I love cookies. I'm a cookie girl. I mute them all when I'm competing and when I'm in prep, so I don't see them on my feed. Because out of sight, out of mind for me. And people have to know this, but the algorithm, obviously, the more you click on stuff, the more you see of those things. The algorithm's like, oh, you like this? Let's show you more. So the more you click on other competitors, the more it's going to show you other competitors. And if that's something that triggers you, then that's probably something you don't want to do anymore. Same thing with food. If you just so food focused, maybe just stop clicking on all the food, mute some of the accounts, unfollow. I know some people do cardio watching the Food Channel. I'm like, I would literally probably just eat my arm off if I did that. But yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that. When I was more in the running space, I ran a marathon, and I swear, as I got closer and I was training further, I would start to smell and even to some degree,
that nose
hate.
gets real good.
Yeah, it would be a Big Mac and a McFlurry, and I would just crave that, and is actually one of the things I ended up winning at the end of the race, that I didn't end up getting it, but I was like, I'm running this last 5.2 miles just for that,
This is for this meal. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Move Your Body Apparel, a Lexington-based, community-ran premium activewear brand that promotes the importance of daily movement. For the rest of the year, MYB is donating a percentage of every order to the Special Olympics of Kentucky. Save 20% off your first order with the link below, or use code TWR20. Online at mybapparel.com.
So whenever you experience the Olympia, just experience in general, what kind of how does that whole thing play when it comes to just the competition itself? It's the biggest of the big. It's all these things that you can say, and
it's big.
Yeah. So how does that play into the focus and into all these different things that are so important when it comes to the competition?
I think part of it is just accepting that that's part of what you sign up for. When you work toward a goal that big, there are things that are going to come with it. Like the meet and greet, the expo, just the stage in general, and that level of competition. There are certain ways to, I think, eliminate as much distraction as you can, so that you can, know, okay, this is exactly how much mental energy and time I'm going to spend on this thing, before I can get back to kind of just focusing on me and focusing on what I need to do for the stage. But I think, to me, I mean, it's an honor to be up there. So I'm not going to complain about, maybe standing at the expo for a meet and greet and meeting. Obviously, I mean, I think it's amazing. Even last year, the amount of people that came to see me, I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I just, yeah, I try to, I think I consciously make an effort to limit how much of other people's opinions on those things that I expose myself to. Because obviously not everybody's experience or excitement behind an event like that is going to be the same. as far as the level of excitement and you know what they're looking forward to. But for me, I don't know, I just think it's so cool.
And is there anything that you do to try to like maintain your own inner like thoughts to keep those kind of within you and like, you know, keep your own head on? Like, is there any like meditation or journaling or, you know, any, you know, talking to somebody? Like, is there anything you do to try to like, as much like exposure as that event has and, you know, talking to other people and like you
Mm.
said, just kind of the energy transfer there. Like, is there anything you do to try to like recalibrate yourself?
Oh yes, I definitely just make sure I get my time to myself. Um, and establish that boundary for myself and like just let myself be okay with that. And just say no to things. Like if it's a photo shoot and I'm just not really feeling it and I feel like I already have enough on my plate, then I'm just not going to do that photo shoot. Um, I think because I'm naturally very shy actually and quite introverted. So I, in anticipation, know, okay, I can mentally prepare myself to be this social for this event and just know that I get to shut that off, shut it out after. And I do like to meditate mostly by just spending time outside. I just recently started reading a couple books that I've just been enjoying, kind of like walking outside and listening to, because I love to listen to Audible. Sometimes it's nice to hold a physical copy with a highlighter and just like, highlight things that resonate with me. Um, and just remember that it's my journey, it's my time that I get to experience, you know, this experience. And just continue to be present, be mindful, and be grateful for what's going on around me.
Have you ever had any like weird dreams or like anything like that leading up?
Oh my gosh, I have had this dream more than once where like I'm lining up to I'm late for prejudging and I'm running through the expo hall to line up and I because I wear a wig on stage and like I'm running, my wig's not glued on, my hair is not braided down so that I can put my wig on properly, my makeup's not done, like I'm just not ready. Not even really about like cheating on my diet or anything like that. It's really just that wig for some reason. It's like there's that last puzzle piece that's just missing in that nightmare.
That's funny.
Um yeah, that's that's it.
I think it's so funny. Like, why do people like, I feel like no matter what situation, whether it's school or work or, you know, a sport, it always comes down to like the most bizarre things of like clothing or, you know,
Right.
like, am I wearing pants in this dream? Like, you're not wearing pants or something.
Right.
Like, what is
Oh
it
my
about? Like, I
gosh.
guess it's just like a feeling of being exposed, like exposure, whether it's, you know, physical or like you're exposing something like, you know, about like your weakness or whatever it is. It's just, I guess
Yeah,
that's
I
maybe like the
think
fear aspect.
I know for me, I'm very much a perfectionist. And like, especially when it comes to this, and like, because this is my craft, this is what I do, it's what I'm passionate about. So, to like, I think for me, the thought of getting on stage at anything less than like pristine, like makeup is done, lips are done, makeup is or hair is on and laid and slayed, then I'm just like, oh my, what a nightmare, you know? Because that's me, that's my persona when I'm up there is as I put it on. So like getting on stage without feeling like she's there, she's here, she's arrived. Oh no, I could not.
Yeah, and so much of especially I feel like the women's side of bodybuilding is it is that kind of like becoming that person on stage. Um, the persona,
Mhm.
the you know, the attitude, whatever it is. Is that something that you practice as well? Like almost just like stepping into that without any like second notice?
I practice that a lot because I'm also not like my journey like just with myself and developing self-confidence did not come naturally. It's been a very conscious and like deliberate um just work in progress. So I think sorry, what was your question? I'm sorry.
like, do you actually like practice like putting yourself into that mindset, like just as almost like part of your prep?
Yes. I mean, I practice my posing almost every day now at this point. We're what, 9.5 weeks out. That energy that I bring on stage, I it's not something that I just like, okay, now I'm on stage, here we go. It's something that I put on that music that makes me feel like that, like how I want to feel when I'm up there. I start walking, I warm up, I get, that sass starts flowing. Um, and I have to practice that because I think otherwise it won't come as naturally. And I think when you're forcing sass and you're forcing confidence, but you're not quite feeling that, you're not quite tapped into that. Um, I think it's a lot harder to get on, just turn it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I tell girls that when I work with them, I'm like, if you have extensions, if you have a wig that you're going to put on, practice in that hair, like learn how it's going to move with you when you are practicing. It's not going to just one day all of a sudden you're going to just become this goddess, this queen. You have to look for those opportunities in your posing and your body language and let that, speak for you.
Yeah, for sure. It's like putting, going through all of it, having like that walk through mentally and just like, I guess, visualization as well, just kind of,
Mm,
putting yourself there. Is that something that you
yes.
utilize?
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. And it's funny whenever I do it, it like gives me like, I get butterflies, I get excited. Um, and it's fun to kind of tap back into that mindset of like, okay, now I'm gonna perform. And obviously not everybody, that's not like that for everyone, but that's what it is for me. Um, and so, sometimes like I even lose sleep thinking about like my doing my routine on stage in front of, everybody on that big stage. It's like, wow, like I get excited.
Yeah. It's really it's like I said, it's an interesting kind of opportunity that bodybuilding is because it feels like it is kind of getting a little bit bigger, especially with social media, a lot of people on social media taking advantage of utilizing that for other things and just
A
bringing the
platform.
attention to it. Yeah, for sure. Using it as a platform and hopefully, using it for the right reasons to get to other things as well. But like it just seems like in some ways it just has kind of like exploded because of Instagram and because of
Yeah. And
just
YouTube.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
back in when I was a kid and looking kind of back in the day and to the 70s and things, it just seemed like such like an exclusive club and something
Right.
that like nobody, like I never knew anybody really that even knew anything about bodybuilding. And now it just seems like you walk into a gym and it's like at least one person there knows somebody who competes. It's like
Yeah. And
such
I
a
think,
growing thing.
I mean, we can definitely thank some of our current competitors for that. I mean, like C-Bomb, Chris Bumstead. I mean, who doesn't know, who that is at this point, especially if like you're a dude, you're a bro, and you're in the gym. He's I think, been a great, I think, representation of bodybuilding and competing, but he's definitely used his platform to like, I think, bring a very positive light and following to competing. Same for, a few other bikini competitors, pro bodybuilders. Sometimes, it gets a little bit messy, but still entertaining, and it just continues to draw attention and grow the community, which I think is cool.
Yeah, it is. So to kind of wrap things up, what kind of advice would you have for somebody who wants to get into the sport of bodybuilding and maybe succeed and at least
Yes.
just to do what they can do in it? Because like it's such a sport of personalization. Everybody has
Mm-hmm.
their own limits. Everybody has what they can do, and it has to be you kind of have to accept that. But you can always do what you can do, and you can always do the best you can do.
Yeah, and I think that's very important to remember. And I think competing, I will say, is hard. It's fucking hard. Like getting stage lean and putting the time into practice, dedicating time and setting aside time to make sure that you're, you know, presenting a package that you can be proud of, which is going to be relative because everybody has different goals, different starting points, different aspirations for this sport. Um, it's important to remember that competing's it can expose weaknesses and force you to evaluate your life in a way that's maybe a little uncomfortable, because it requires certain sacrifices, which I think if it ends up becoming something that you genuinely enjoy, those sacrifices don't really feel like sacrifices anymore. But it's not going to fix your life. I know a lot of people dive into competing, sometimes it seems, because they need something to distract them from areas of their life that they probably should take some time to like get their shit together. Um, especially when you look at people who, they try to prep and they do a really awesome prep and they're like, what, 2 days out from stage, and then all of a sudden they're like in their bathroom eating cookies like the day before they get on stage. It's like, why are you sabotaging yourself? What is going on, deep down that you're not evaluating, that's now keeping you from, doing your best at something, which we could probably talk about for hours. But I think I did write down like a couple other notes because I wanted to make sure I talked about certain things. But your fitness journey and like your goals, like they're your goals, and at the end of the day, when obviously we're exposed to a lot of stimulus when it comes to social media and what other people are doing, why other people do things, their opinions on their and their experiences with their fitness journey. To me, fitness is somewhat of a philosophy, because I think I don't just compete and eat the way that I eat and train the way that I train because I have to. I think sometimes people look at competitors because we compete and think, oh, well, they just eat like that because they have to. If they didn't compete, they wouldn't have the same kind of motivation. And I do this and I enjoy this because at the end of the day, I put things in my body that make me feel good. They keep my digestion happy. They keep my body happy. My skin's glowing. I have energy to walk around outside. I feel good about myself, not because of necessarily the way I look, but I feel good. And I think also just remembering not to, there's going to be phases, and it's important to try to do your best to disassociate your self-worth with what you see in the mirror. Because at the end of the day, competing, when we get in shape, is for that purpose of competing, not to produce some level of, satisfaction because now we're our best self because we're shredded, you know. And when you're transitioning into an off season, it's important to have a plan, because it's hard to deal with that, and it's can sometimes lead to episodes where you end up overeating because you don't realize that there's a process involved in making sure that you can recover from a prep, in a way that you're not now just packing on 30 pounds from a rebound. There's a lot that goes into it, so just make sure you do your research. You have some baseline understanding of what you're getting into. And like I said, it can expose a lot of weaknesses, so just make sure you're a little good with yourself here before you get into that.
Yeah, 100%. I talked to somebody before who said kind of a similar thing that they actually had to do. They had to go through kind of like a preparing for doing the sport. Like, are they
Oh yeah.
really strong enough? Are they, can they pick up a habit and create a new routine? Is that something that they can do? Like,
Right.
these are all skills. These are all things that you have to work on and build the skills, and you're creating these things, these characteristics, and you become better at them. But like, you can't just expect to
Definitely
jump into something, especially something it really is a lifestyle in so many ways. You're doing this new way of, of looking at food as fuel and performing, based on that fuel, and working your schedule around when you can cook meals and like when you can go to the gym and when you can do all this stuff. It's not something to take lightly, I think, is what, basically what you're saying.
Yes, and I don't mean to scare anybody, but like I said, everyone's goals are different, so and it's one of those things in life where like you get a direct, like, the effort you put in, that's exactly what you get out of it. If you can only give so much, don't be disappointed when you're not producing the results that you want, or you're not seeing what you want to see, or you didn't place as well. Because when you look back, you go, oh, well, I guess I did skip quite a few cardio sessions, and I did have a few extra bites of this here and there, and I didn't track it, or I just didn't feel like going to the gym last week. Just gotta be honest with yourself.
Yeah. I think that's really good advice and a really good spot to kind of end this podcast. It's really good getting to talk to you, get to meet you, and I'm actually going to be at the Olympia, so just look forward to seeing you and seeing you perform and things. It's really cool to kind of get to experience like an athlete at the highest level of a sport just on a personal level. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor to be on, and thanks for having me.
100%. If you want to, before we head out though, if you want to share your social media or YouTube or whatever, you can do that.
Yeah, so my Instagram is Daraja Hill Fit, DARAJAHILLFIT. If you want to follow me on YouTube, you totally can, but there's not a whole lot going on. So Instagram is definitely where the party is. And that's really it. If you want to book posing with me as a bikini competitor, empoweredtopose.com is also a link in my bio. All of my discount codes and links are also in there if you're curious to know what my favorite products and brands are.